Hey everyone, my name is Wedge, and while we don't have as many spoilers to talk about today, the ones we are talking about may be pretty impactful. The most controversial card released today is Firedrinker Satyr. 1 red mana gets you a 2/1, and whenever he is dealt damage, he deals that much damage to you. For 2 mana, you can give him +1/+0 until end of turn, and he deals 1 damage to you. People are going crazy over this card. Magic has had a long line of staple red 1-drops, from Curdape to Goblin Lackey, from Figure of Destiny to Spark Elemental, and even more recently from Stromkirk Noble to Rakdos Cackler. Red has always had a few quality 1-drops in Standard at any given moment. Firedrinker Satyr looks to be the replacement for Stromkirk Noble. 1 mana for a 2/1 is good on its own, so there's no hangups there. Whenever he is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to you. Since the comparison is inevitable, yes, just like Jackopup. This is the problem. Cards like Mizia Mortars, Lightning Strike, and even Shock hurt you a lot. In addition to killing your 1-drop that you might have pumped mana into and taken damage to make it bigger, you take a bunch more damage to the face. Granted, red deck wins players don't much care about their life total, this is still a huge 2-for-1 in favor of your opponent. Fire Breathing isn't a bad ability either. The problem is that you have to commit 2 mana every time you do it, and you risk falling to a burn spell that essentially copies itself and hits you too. I think the problem with this card is people look at it, see Bellows Lizard or something similar, and just think the downside is too high. It really depends on how much you value that 2/1 body over the 1/1. I'm not saying he won't see play, because the card makes sense in red deck wins. However, this will be the first card that a red player doesn't want to have out on the battlefield at once. That is asking for a lot of hurt. If you're against a control deck, I can see main boarding 2 or 3 of these and then siding the rest in after game 1. Control decks don't usually deal damage as their primary way to kill creatures unless red is involved. Something like blue-white or Esper control will most likely board sweep. In a situation like this, the Satyr is pretty good. Against a mid-range or aggro deck where there is a lot of interaction between creatures and burn spells, it's more of a liability. My final thoughts on this are that it would be great against control matchups that avoid red in their colors. It would be suboptimal against aggressive strategies. And if the Satyr had haste, I think people would be much friendlier towards playing him. The next card we're going to look at is Triad of Fates. This is another card people are going back and forth about, and I can understand why. For 2 colorless, 1 black, and 1 white, you get a 3/3. You can pay 1 and tap it to put a fate counter on another target creature. You can also pay a white and tap it to exile target creature that has a fate counter on it, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Lastly, you can pay a black and tap it to exile target creature that has a fate counter on it, and its controller draws 2 cards. Fate counters are a nice callback to Oblivion Stone and provide some interesting interactions with it, so that's pretty cool. As far as functionality, let's break it down. 4 mana for a 3/3 isn't optimal, and each of the abilities require tapping, so that is pretty slow even for the upcoming standard meta. However, being able to flicker your creatures, like with Resto Angel, is awesome. As soon as I saw this card, I thought, boom! Whip of Erebos has an enabler. You bring something back with the whip, exile it with the Triad, and when it comes back, it's back forever. It's an awesome combination of effects, and while it does take some setting up, like a way to untap the Fates, and a good amount of mana, it's pretty sweet. The last ability lets you exile a creature and their controller draws 2 cards. This could be used offensively against your opponent. If they have an Angel of Serenity or something else that's gigantic, giving them 2 cards might not be so bad. It can also be good to use on your own creatures. You can stick fate counters on your guys as a defense mechanism. When your opponents try to kill them, just get rid of them for cards if flickering them isn't viable, for instance in response to a sweep. This is the kind of card that needs a creature package around it. You must be able to take advantage of the flicker mechanic. While this would be insanely expensive, the Triad plus Ashen Rider is one interaction that comes to mind. Also, Grey Merchant of Asphodel would be particularly devastating over and over again. Yes, these are expensive interactions, but I can see some white-green-black decks doing some crazy things in New Standard. If this sees no Standard play, which there is a good chance it won't, this is still a monster in EDH decks with Oblivion Stone. One of the most common things said about this card so far is that it's replacing Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts, as a possible commander. So regardless if this sees play, it's still pretty cool. Next, we have Keepsake Gorgon, 3 colorless and 2 black for a 2/5 with Death Touch. For 7 mana, you can make her monstrous, granting her +1/+1, and you destroy target non-Gorgon creature an opponent controls. This will see play in Limited for sure, but I gotta say, this is so expensive. The monstrosity cost only makes it a 3/6. In addition, you are paying 7 mana for a kill spell. Granted, if you have nothing else to do with your mana, this is fine, but it is far too expensive and doesn't impact the board enough to be used in Standard. Death Touch on a 5 toughness creature is good though, don't get me wrong. This card will see limited play and it will do well in that role, so keep that in mind. She won't be easy to kill. The last card we're talking about today is Dauntless Assault. 2 colorless and 1 white for an instant that grants up to 2 creatures +2/+2 until end of turn. This is an interesting card. Up to this point, the heroic enablers we've seen are mainly auras. It's good to know that we have combat tricks to work with as well. The cost isn't too high and instant speed is always good. What's nice is being able to trigger heroic on 2 different creatures with this card. Since most heroic abilities have the creatures getting +1/+1 counters, this card basically says up to 2 creatures each get +3/+3 instead of just +2/+2 if you're playing it in a heroic deck. I like this card a lot. It'll be amazing in Limited for sure, and I can see it in aggro decks against other aggro decks, or decks with burn as their main form of removal. This is a nice 2-for-1. The Onslaught helps you survive burn spells in combat, while simultaneously growing your heroic creatures. This could see play in aggressive strategies that utilize the heroic ability. It is important to keep in mind that if there are more heroic enablers like this, a strategy designed around the mechanic is going to look stronger and stronger the closer we get to rotation. In non-spoiler news, Wizards released the look for the new challenge deck that will be used at game day, and available for purchase afterward. This looks pretty sweet, and the packaging gives it a unique presentation. Very cool. In addition, at the pre-release, players will be able to get this awesome binder page designed to hold all of the 9 steps from the hero's path. This is really cool. If you attend a pre-release, you should be able to get these while supplies last. I'll definitely be sure to get mine. That's it for spoilers today. We're getting closer and closer to the pre-release. I'm curious about what colors you guys are going to play. As per usual, I'll probably be playing blue. Old habits die hard. As always, subscribe below for the most up-to-date and reliable spoiler information you could ever need. This is the Mana Source. I'm Wedge. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.